I saw a new player ask a question recently that looked completely reasonable. How many legions should I have in season 2? And before I even thought about it, I already know what answer I expected to see. 3, 4, maybe 5. Because that's what strange looked like in Call of Dragons. More marches, more heroes, more troops, more pets, more artifacts, more options. At least that's what most players assume. Then I saw somebody answer with a single word. 1. And honestly, that answer bothered me because if one legion is enough, then why are so many free-to-play players trying to build 4 or 5 legions? And if 4 or 5 legions are better, why would somebody say 1? One of those ideas has to be wrong. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized the answer was much more interesting than that. Because the real problem isn't how many legions you're having, it's what you're giving up building them. When most players start the game, more legions is actually feeling like a progress. And I'm also a little guilty of that. I mean, when I start, I try to build like in season 1, 3 legions with Atios, with Lilia, with Velen. All these heroes I was trying to build. And this is season 1. And honestly, I was thinking the same. The more legions, better progress. You unlock another hero, you build another march. You get another set of troops moving around on the map. Everything feels stronger, everything feels bigger. Everything was actually feeling efficient because you're also making more merits by having like 3 legions. You're getting from 3 places merits, not for example from 1 place. Your account look more developed. And that's where I think the first mistake happened, because bigger and stronger are not always the same thing. A free-to-play player with 4 mediocre legions can easily be weaker than a player with 1 excellent legion. And that's a weird realization because visually the opposite appear true. One account looks larger, the other account looks smaller. Yet the smaller account often wins. Why? That was the next question I start thinking about. The first answer is heroes, because every time you build another legion, you're not just building a legion, you're dividing hero investments, you're dividing tokens, you're dividing stars, you're dividing future upgrades. And suddenly I start realizing something. The game doesn't really punish you for unlocking heroes. The game punishes you for spending investments. That's a huge difference because spreading investments feels productive. You get more things, you get more heroes, more contribution, more options, but concentrated investments create power. And power is what actually matters. That's why some players with fewer heroes consistently outperform players with larger collection. They're not investing in more things, they're investing deeper. Then I noticed something else. Equipment creates exactly the same problem. Because heroes can be spreaded, but the equipment can be spreaded too. The equipment is one of those systems that quietly punish impatience. A lot of players see multiple marches and think, I need equipment for all of this. And by equipment, I mean artifacts, I mean pets, I mean even decorations, city skins, which sounds logical. Until you realize everybody are having average pets, average artifacts, and basically nobody's having nothing. The average, gear, if I can actually use this word, across 4 marches often lose to 1 march with exceptional gear. Now, it's one thing to have somebody with artifact level 5 having awakened heroes, having strong builded pet, and having some investment in decorations from somebody who invests like 4 and 5 marches. And that surprised me when I first started paying attention to the reports, because the strongest account often didn't have most equipment. They had the most concentrated pets, artifacts, and that's a completely different mindset. Then things get even more interesting because heroes and rest of the context around the heroes aren't the only resource being split. Troops too, and this is where the problem becomes much harder to see. When you spread troops across multiple marches, every march becomes weaker. Every hospital build becomes more painful. Every lose hurts more. Every fight becomes harder to sustain. And suddenly the account that look bigger starts feeling smaller. Because now none of your marches are truly dangerous. They're just present, and being present isn't the same as being impactful. That's when I start realizing that many free to play players aren't actually building additional strength, they're building additional responsibility. Every new legions need heroes, need artifacts, need pets, and eventually your account starts carrying more project than it can realistically can support, especially for free to play players. Here we're not talking about the whales, here we're not talking about the mid spenders, we're talking about the free to play players, and maybe to some extent the wolf spenders. That's where I think many players get trapped, because more legions feels like growth, but sometimes it's just more unfinished work. Then I start asking a different question. If concentrating resources is so powerful, why do players spread them in the first place? At the first place? And honestly, I think the answer is simple. Progress is visible. Efficiency isn't. You can see new legion, you can see a new hero, you can see another march walking around the map. You can easily see, but you cannot easily see the opportunity cost. You don't see the stronger primary legion that could have existed. You don't see that extra stats. You don't see the strongest pet or strongest artifact. And you don't see the future power you traded off, you traded away. And because you cannot see it, it's easy to ignore. That's where I think many accounts slowly lose efficiency. Not through mistakes, through decisions that feels productive. Then I noticed something that completely changed how I think about account progression. The strongest free-to-play players often aren't trying to do more. They're trying to do less, better. One strong march, one strong hero pair, one strong artifact, one strong pet. And that's a different mindset for most players. Because most players ask, how can I build another legion? The strongest question might be, how much stronger can I make that one that I already have? And those two questions lead to completely different accounts a year later. And to be fair, that's why I'm making those videos about the meta heroes and etc. Just go for the meta heroes if you're free to play players. I think is going to be maybe the better value for your account. The funny thing is that the players who answered one probably wasn't really talking about one legion. He was talking about focus, because focus what creates power, not activity, not complexity, not quantity, just focus. And I think that's one of the easiest lessons to forget in Call of Dragons, because the game constantly encourage expansion. More heroes, more system, more marches, more everything. But free to play progression usually isn't won by expanding faster. It is won by concentrating better. So I'm curious, how many legions are you actively investing in right now? And looking back, do you think focusing on fewer legions would have made your account stronger? Because the more I think about it, the more I believe one of the biggest traps for free-to-play players isn't investing in the wrong heroes. It's trying to build too many things at the same time. Anyway, guys, that is for this video. Huge thank you to all channel members for supporting the channel. If you do like to support the channel as well, you can check out the join button below. Members get early access to videos, exclusive content, member shoutouts, and Warwords member can reach me out directly for strategy and account advices. Thank you very much for watching and see you in the next one.